Hello, everyone. Adrian Groenewald here, Me Vision Academy. What an honor and privilege to be with you today as we hand another Successful Leader Award to a very deserving leader. And it's such a privilege to be with him. Just a reminder, we are mobilizing successful leaders by countries, sectors, and levels. So successful leaders are not just at the very top, they're all over. And we want to find them. But we're also wanting to mobilize emerging leaders. So we think of the future, and we're hoping these successful leaders can rub off on the emerging leaders inside this ecosystem. So what we then do when we find successful leaders or those who are nominated, we actually hand them an award. And today we've got Dr. Garth Japhet. He's the Heartline CEO of Heartlines, and he's done so many other things as well, but also of late founder of Fix Local. So trying to connect people who will make a difference in our communities, turn around cities and towns, and certainly one of those leaders who has the potential to make a big difference in our country, even bigger difference than he has already. He was nominated by Dr. Louise van Rijn. Garth Japhet, welcome.
Thanks so much, Rodin. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for the honor.
It's our honor, and I'm going to present the award to you, and then I'm excited to hear what you think great leadership looks like. What have you learned about successful leadership in your own life, but also observing other leaders? But before we go there, let's do the actual handover. An exclusive recognition of successful leadership award to Dr. Garth Japhet for at least consistently leading self and others successfully in very difficult circumstances, I might add. Running the kind of organizations, you have is not necessarily so easy. You can't force, you need to lead with a heart. Also successfully launching and leading causes such as Soul City Institute, Heartlines, and now Fix Local, which is in its fairly beginning stages, but it's ready to scale. Being a successful and globally recognized social entrepreneur, and also setting a gold standard for leadership rooted in humanity and hope. And it's my privilege as one of the co-founders of Me Vision Academy to sign this. We like to say journey to best self. That's kind of our slogan. And we do think that you are on that journey, Garth. So a formal recognition and thank you for your leadership.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, Garth, what does successful leadership look like from the journey you've been on?
Adrian, I think where I think I've been very fortunate is that I've learned to know what I don't know, and to find people who know a lot more than I do about certain areas. And to basically empower them, or to what I call lead from behind, which is to allow them to use the skills that they clearly have to execute a vision which I may have. I think having a vision is the easy part, but actually finding the people who have the skills and the desire and the passion to execute, and then supporting them in that process, I think has been the key. And I'm really fortunate over the years to have worked with lots of those people.
So that makes it sound very simple. And I do believe leadership per se is simple, but it's difficult. So what makes the simplicity of that so difficult? I mean, you've got a vision, you find people who are passionate about it, who have the skills to do it perhaps, and you empower them, you trust them to make it happen. But what are the obstacles to the simplicity of that power, Garth? What have you found?
Well, I certainly had times where, in fact, I thought the vision was attainable, and then, I'm fortunate in being able to maybe inspire people with a vision, but then finding that actually the vision was not realistic, and then trying to manage people who've been inspired to do something, which clearly turns out not to be doable, is really, really hard, because you realize that actually you're the problem. And yeah, I suppose, I mean, one of the initiatives that I started 12 years ago was something called For Good, which is now the largest volunteering platform in Africa. And in the early stages of that, my vision was, I've done this for television, radio, and print through Soul City. How difficult can it be to build a digital platform? And in my sort of, vision was to be something like Facebook, but for social causes. And you go to a lot of digital companies and they'll say, fine, that'll cost you X. They don't tell you it's not doable. I then get to a bunch of people around me who are very excited about building the social Facebook, only to find that actually it's completely unrealistic. And dealing with the sort of disappointment, the sort of betrayal in a way, of how you sold this vision and it's clearly not doable. So I think that's probably been one of my hardest things, is to try and sell something that is doable as opposed to something that, you know, if you can believe it, you can do it. And I've had that. It's probably the hardest leadership experience I've ever had.
Yeah, that sounds profoundly honest, Garth. um, and then managing that with I guess the same level of honesty is to say, I don't know, how did you handle that?
Yeah, again, I mean, it was, I suppose, one of those sort of lucky God instances, etc. I met a guy who'd been an entrepreneur in the tech space and had been part of the FNB team building the initial digital offering for FNB, and he'd written quite a lot about NGOs and about how we just didn't get digital. And I said to him, "Listen, you're absolutely right. I don't get digital. I've got the scars to prove it. We've still got a bit of money, got a great team. Do you think, what about putting your money where your mouth is and coming and giving this a go?" And to his everlasting credit, he did, and turned it around to now be a profitable organization that actually pays our NGO dividends. So, you know, that was a lucky break, but it was also realizing that I'd stumbled into an area that I really did, you know, I had false confidence that I knew what to do, and that was clearly not the case. So yeah, I think the other, you know, maybe talking again about leadership, is that I've found that being honest is actually a great strength, about my personal failings. My colleagues know that I've been on medication for the last 30 years for mental health issues, and I'm very happy to share my vulnerability with them. And I think that allows them to trust me in a way, is that there is strength as a leader in being vulnerable.
Are you Do you pick up enough of that as you associate with all sorts of leaders, that there is enough of that vulnerability and honesty out there, or is it few and far between actually?
Well, I don't know, in that I've never really, I mean, you know, I'm not sure that I'm ever employable, in that I've always created my own jobs. So I've never worked for anybody else. So, but my sense is that particularly within the corporate world and also given the work that Heartlines has done in the corporate world, is that, you know, vulnerability is not equated to strength. It's equated to weakness. And I think that's such a mistake in leaders. I think, you know, that whole experience of, for good, I was open and honest to say, guys, I really have messed up here. I thought we were onto something. I built it, you know, the vision had everything to, it was a good vision. It just wasn't realistic. And I think for that reason, people, you know, were happy to give it another go, to pivot to, whereas I think if I'd blustered my way through and blamed our suppliers and blamed everybody else, I think I'd have lost everyone. So I think being vulnerable and being honest is a great strength, and certainly one that I don't regret in the slightest.
Garth, have you found your genuine purpose? Why you're on Earth? Why you exist?
Yeah, you know, I'm one of these. When we were talking before, Adrian was saying, you know, for me, my work is not work. It's I would do it even if I wasn't being paid. You know, it was a tortuous journey. I'm the most unlikely medical doctor in that my leanings towards languages and arts, and somehow I managed to get into medical school. But finding that medicine was, my vision was to be a rural doctor and to go and, you know, change the face of Africa, and finding out that as a doctor in a rural or in a township area, which I was really very, you know, I had a complete and utter meltdown, because what I'd envisioned and what I'd experienced were two different things. And so I was, you know, lucky enough to be able to pivot into using the other part of me, which is the arts and communication and language and storytelling. But for exactly the same reasons I did medicine, which is to make a difference. And so I'm, I think, one of the fortunate people that can honestly look back and say, I believe that, you know, I've been able to use the gifts that I've been given, and I take that quite seriously.
And I'm going to assume that someone who has truly found their purpose, genuinely, Honesty will probably follow that. I think, unless the purpose is just to get wealthy or become powerful, and it's a sort of an egotistical purpose. If it's a genuine purpose, then I think honesty is probably going to become part of that person's makeup. Garth, thank you for what you're doing. We haven't even spoken half about what you're doing. Just very quickly, Fix Local is the latest thing which I've learned of through Louise van Rijn. And just tell us the essence of that. And this is one of your latest leadership projects that you're trying to get into South Africa and maybe beyond. And just tell us how that's going.
Yeah, thanks, Aryan. Well, it's also one of these journeys where the vision unfolds gradually. But the bigger vision was that there are so many amazing people and institutions doing good work across the country to fix what is broken and to hold to account the people who are meant to be responsible for fixing it. And I think you know about the states of many of our towns and cities across the country. And under that basically that deterioration is first of all reversible, but B, it underpins our ability to create jobs, to create futures. And so I was very aware that lots of these individual stories, of love cities and, Josie, my Josie and Joburg, and stories like from Harry Smith and Howick, and where citizens have either worked with their local government or have held them to account. And my sense was that what if we were able to actually find these stories and find out what had worked, so that first of all, people felt that they were not alone, and secondly, that they didn't have to start from scratch. There are almost best practices for how to go about things. And at the moment, that learning is scattered in time and place. And so that was the sort of genesis of Fix Local, which has now got sort of 4 components to it. One is the best way to report an issue, depending on where you are. And sometimes there's 10 ways, and we found what we think works the best. Then how to escalate it to your local councillor. We've geolocated, based on your location, we can tell you who your councillor is and how to contact them, their email address and their cell phone, which strangely enough is not easily available to anyone. And we've been able to geolocate that. So that's sort of reported. And then the Fix It is useful tools. How do you manage a neighborhood? What neighborhood group? How do you fundraise? How do you use media? And then organize is how do you organize people? And again, taking from stories of best practice, and underpinning all of that is these stories. So it's a combination of inspiration of great stories of people doing good things or communities with really practical information, and ultimately being a connector. So we're not doing things, we're connecting to groups like Love Cities or Josie My Josie or Corruption Watch, and trying to be a clearinghouse in many ways of one place that people can come if they are passionate about trying to make a difference in their neighborhood, in their street, in their community.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. As you say, the vision is huge. I think you are empowering people to do something about it, and hopefully the vision can be achieved. And thank you for just being one of those South Africans who wants to reverse things and make a success of our country. I also believe it's possible. It's absolutely possible, but we've got to work hard and unite. And thank you again. Well done on the award, your Successful Leader Award. You deserve it, and continue leading. Thank you, Garth.
Thanks so much, Arjun. Appreciate your time, and thank you for the honor of the award.